I'm Dr. John Zeisel. I believe that staying engaged in our communities, that continuing to learn, and that knowing we can make a difference, hope, are the secrets of successful aging. Welcome to Hopeful Aging. I'm John Zeisel. My mission, and this program's mission, is to create a life worth living for all of us as we get older, including those with cognitive challenges, by enriching lives and offering hope. Our guest today is Deke Cateau, Chief Executive Officer at A.G. Rhodes Health and Rehab, a group of innovative, mission-driven nursing homes in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome, Deke.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you as well for all you've done for this community as well.
Thank you. Well, look, Deke, I mentioned A.G. Rhodes. Running a large healthcare organization is a full-time job, morning, evening, sometimes night. So how big is A.G. Rhodes, and what makes this special to you?
A.G. Rhodes is a group of 3 non-profit nursing homes in the Atlanta metro area. In total, we have capacity for 418 residents. This past year, we saw 1,300 residents. Wow. We also have 600 staff, and we pride ourselves in that our secret sauce is making lives not only comfortable for our residents who we take care of, but we also take care of our staff like they are family. I'm proud again to be part of a nonprofit organization who takes care of such a vulnerable population, particularly those who are underinsured and uninsured.
So when you say a group in need, how many are on Medicaid, for example, out of the 418?
So just under 70% of our residents are under Medicaid.
Wow.
So that is again a very worthwhile mission that as an organization, we see those as being some of the more vulnerable populations.
Many organizations like yours sort of say, well, these are poor people, they're all on Medicaid, we can't afford to do anything innovative and interesting. You don't say that.
No. So we say where there's a will, there's a way. And we are very, very careful and very purposeful in that we think there is a way financially to take care of those populations as well. And it's needed. It is such a needed caveat in our society that those individuals who may not necessarily have the financial ability to afford the type of care that others get.
Because that's been one of the criticisms of so much of healthcare, whether it be nursing homes or assisted living, which is it's really for the upper echelon. Yeah. And the quality of care that's given is often drops down when it gets to be. Did you always know you were going to be in healthcare?
No, I did not. So I am a history buff. My undergraduate degree is in history, and my postgraduate work is in international relations. So I sort of got into healthcare by accident. My wife was in the healthcare field. She was and is a registered dietitian. And I sort of thank her for really prompting and seeing in me that ability to take care of and to care for individuals.
Did she introduce you to people, or what happened?
She did. Unplanned meeting outside my wife's job, which was a nursing home in Marietta, Georgia, one afternoon, led to me being offered a position to come work for that organization. Ironically, that organization was based out of Newton, Massachusetts. Five-star quality care is the name of the organization.
So what did you say that got someone to say, you know, I don't know what you're doing now, but how come work for you?
Well, John, that was a long time ago. I don't think I said too much other than, like I said, my wife always saw in me that passion for seniors. And quite frankly, she just thought I would be good at it, and she was right.
Somebody listened.
Someone listened.
So you're in administration now.
Yeah.
Have you always had some connection to being in charge of things?
Yeah. So leadership to me is a quality or trait that sometimes rises to the top in individuals. So I do consider myself a leader. Most organizations I was part of, I was a student leader. I was an athletic leader in college.
Student leader, were you student president or something?
Yes, I was the president of the student government, what we call the Student Guild at the University of the West Indies.
Oh, wow.
In St. Augustine, Trinidad.
So this leadership comes naturally.
Leadership to me comes naturally, and more importantly, it's a passion to want to make serious change. And I think the platform of leadership gives me that ability to really influence change, in this case in my organization, AG Rhodes.
Well, we're going to get back to leadership and what that means to you and how you see, what kind of lessons you've learned about leadership since taking over this job. But you mentioned Trinidad, and that's where you in the West Indies.
Absolutely.
So it's a big cultural shift.
Yeah.
What did you find, or what do you find that really you're drawing from that cultural background, maybe a family background even, that you can use in today's world and work?
It's funny you ask. When I think about Trinidad and what I learned that's useful in my job today, I think back to my grandmother and my mother. My grandmother retired. She was a school teacher, and she retired at an early age to take care of her grandkids. And when she became old in age and needed more assistance, both my parents did the exact same thing.
Wow.
And that's one thing I would say I learned from Trinidad society at that time, is how we care for our most vulnerable, how we care for our infants, and how we care for our elders is very, very important. My mom did it for my grandmom, and she in turn did it for her as well.
So it's not only a culture of the importance of family, it's also a culture of service.
Absolutely.
Family service, intergenerational service.
Yes, most definitely, most definitely. Again, you know, we say once a man and twice a child, but we do go through these eras in our lives where we need assistance, we need help, and family, to me, naturally should be the first source you look to for that.
I don't mean to pry, but what was your grandmother's issue?
My grandmother, now we understand that she was living with dementia. At that time, she was never diagnosed with it. Now that I work in this field, I'm pretty certain that's what it was. But the ironic thing about it is she lived to 101 years old, and she was able to live her last days without any medications. She was on Metamucil, was the only medication.
That's a diet
That's
thing,
a diet,
right?
Exactly. But again, that was good old loving care from home, and us knowing her likes, knowing her dislikes, and personalizing the type of care that she was given.
So that's really what you've brought over to AG Rhodes, which is this personalized care, which you know is my passion.
Yes, absolutely.
And my work as well.
Yeah.
So what in Trinidad, is there a kind of culture about aging or culture about elders that not only that was in your family?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally we revere our elders. You know, the term elder we use as a signal or a sign of respect for an individual, and we respect that they have seen a lot more than we've seen, and by virtue of that, they have wisdom that we can learn from and we can grow from.
Do you feel your grandmother, even with her dementia, had wisdom? Did she?
Most definitely. Most
Really?
definitely. In some of the most profound moments, and not only from my grandmom, even now learning and working with people in dementia, in some of the strangest moments, they would make the most profound statements. My grandmom, for example, would not have remembered what happened 5 minutes ago, but she would sit with you and recite poetry, recite some of the sweetest and nicest poetry.
Local Trinidadian poetry or just English poetry?
English poetry, Trinidad being a English nation for so long. But not just poetry, you know, just again, sometimes the touch, sometimes, you know, she still had that grandmother's touch, no matter what, you know, we called her Granny. And we knew that was Granny, just from her touch, just from her soft voice, and just from the way she looked at you. You know, those things, whether you're living with dementia or not, you know, that look, that glare in your eyes, that sparkle in your eyes, those things never go. They never leave the individual.
You know, it's really interesting because what you were able to get from your grandmother is what you and I are both out in the world peddling.
Yeah.
I mean, saying, see the glint in someone's eye, see the smile,
That's right.
see the life,
That's right.
no matter where someone is in the aging process or the dementia process.
Yeah, like you say, I'm still here. That person is still
Yes.
there.
So when you got to this country, how old were you when you came?
Ooh. I came to this country 20 years ago, and I'm
Okay.
45 now.
So as an adult.
Yeah, I was 25.
So you brought some of this sensitivity with you.
Yeah.
What did you get when you got here? What would you say? How, you obviously added stuff from the U.S. context.
Yeah, absolutely. So told you a lot of what I think are the strengths in the Trinidad, I would say, way of caring. But I think the U.S. system, particularly the regulatory side of that, really taught me processes that I think were probably lacking in Trinidad, in that the regulatory, the legal framework of caring for elders almost dictates that you have to give them, in some cases, that respect. The U.S. Healthcare system, particularly nursing homes, as you know, were reformed in the 80s for that very reason, to regulate nursing homes, assisted livings.
But a lot of people say regulations are what's bringing things down, because regulations just set the lowest possible standard. And you're saying actually regulations can help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quality.
Yes, and it depends on the regulation.
No, of course, but how do regulations help quality?
So I would say, for instance, regulations around abuse of elders.
Right.
You know, again, provide that legal framework, which I think has prevented a lot of elder abuse in the United States. Not to say elder abuse still does not exist. But I think we know there's a punitive nature to that now, and we understand that it's wrong.
And does that help you in running a nursing home?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Particularly a nursing home or a group of nursing homes the size of AG Roads.
Yes.
I think it gives that framework for us to really be able to set policy where it comes to caring for our elders.
Isn't that interesting? Is there another sort of part of the U.S. systems and the way people think? For example, the service community.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, is that something that's as strong in Trinidad as it is here?
Yeah, you know, I hate to get into comparisons. Trinidad is a small, developing nation.
Sure.
So it's very difficult to compare certain ways. I think customer service, as it exists in the United States, has really developed into an art. I think some of the service industry in Trinidad could probably learn a little
going
bit,
the other direction.
Yes, could learn a little bit from that. But again, not wanting to get into comparisons, I think both unique perspectives have helped me to become a better leader and a better individual.
But when you came and saw all this customer service, you sort of said, I better make sure I keep going with that at AG Roads and at other organizations.
Absolutely. In our organization, I used to call it guest services.
Oh, wow.
Because we understand that our residents, our elders, many ways are our guests with us, and we have to at least in our staff, in our care partners, inculcate that guest services mentality that is so important to making individuals comfortable, to making individuals feel at home in our communities.
Sort of the word that's often used is person-centered or person-directed. Yeah. And you're saying seeing them as our guests is one piece to that. Yep. Not only dignity and these other words, but a relationship of serving our guests.
Absolutely. We've put so much labels on what should be just common sense. Person-directed care, person-centered care, personalization, guest services. I mean, really, at its simplest level, these are just the core elements of human decency, human behavior, and how you and I would want to be taken care of at that appointed time.
Yes, yes. Was there ever an individual in this country who, sort of mentored you in this? Or did you just sort of go swimming in the big organizations and say, here I am?
Yeah, I've had many. Tama Douglas is and will always be. She was a nursing home administrator. She was the second administrator I worked under. And she really taught me this business the right way. She's deceased now, but almost to this day, almost every decision I make, I sort of think what would Tam
Wow,
do.
isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, she was for all intents and purposes, she was my mother in the United States.
But what a great legacy to have someone like you thinking about that. So any major lessons she taught?
So any of my former supervisors listening to this, please block your ears. But when it came to resident care, the biggest lesson that she taught me was it's better to seek forgiveness than approval. And she taught me to do what is right by the residents, and always keep that central in any decision you are asked to make. And to this day, I would like to think that I've tried my best to live up to that.
So do what's right, and do what's right even if there are consequences.
Absolutely, absolutely.
An example that from your recent work or older work, or
Again, any of my past supervisors may understand
any
this.
past supervisors who are watching, turn off the screen.
I remember I was running a continuous care retirement community, now called a Lifeline community,
Right.
in Savannah, Georgia. And we would change the carpet when we had move-outs, and just to make sure the room was in repair. And I had a den supervisor who forbid me from changing the carpet for financial reasons.
He said it costs too much. They're moving out. Let the new person just take the carpet, the dirty old carpet.
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
And without saying much more, I'm proud to say I changed every single carpet of a move out. And that community did very well financially as well.
And you got in trouble.
I did get in trouble, but
Right.
yeah.
And you're still here.
I'm still here. No pun intended.
So let's switch to AG Rhodes. Because here's an organization that has 60%, 70% people with Medicaid, 60-70% with people with dementia,
Yeah.
living with dementia.
Yeah.
And yet there's innovation and there's interesting things. I just because I know the program a bit, you've got a real lively, vibrant horticultural therapy program,
Yeah.
which means plants, and you even have a greenhouse
Yeah.
in one of the residences. You have a very lively music therapy program where actually there's a documentary film, which we'll mention
Yeah.
at the end, where the music therapist is holding the guitar and playing the fingers when the resident is just strumming.
Yeah.
So really involved and engaged. They're both full-time and they're engaged. And you also use technology
Yeah.
to have communication.
Yeah.
This is a lot of expensive stuff.
Yeah.
Have you always been in favor of this? And what do you think of it now? Are you
Yeah.
are you doing this because you're forced to, or
Yeah.
are you doing this because it's the right thing,
Yep,
like
yep.
you said?
So first of all, I'll say AG Rhodes is a 115-year-old organization.
Right.
And I like to think we've always been on the cutting edge of advances in technology. The best example I'd normally give folks is the electronic medical record, which is now required, that many communities are still trying to get on board with. AG Rhodes has for the past 15 years
Wow.
had an EMR. So I would say we've always been on the cutting edge of innovation. The programs you mentioned, though, really have been transformative programs. Horticulture therapy with the greenhouses associated with it at each home, actually. Music therapy.
Actual greenhouses, not places to live.
Actual
Right.
horticultural greenhouses.
Right, just making sure
where
we're
plants
talking-
are grown. And the music therapy program as well, and our use of technology. I will give a slight admission that these more recent programs, I did not see how we could pull those programs off financially. These are
Who started them?
my predecessor,
Your predecessor.
Al Blackwelder, who's another one of my those folks that I look up to in the
Right.
industry. He started those programs, and I never forgot the phone call he made to me, which was followed up by an email, and I thought he was going crazy. I was like,
What did he say? What did he say in the phone
He
call?
said a local hospital had these two programs, and they were discontinuing the programs for financial reasons and otherwise. And he says, we're going to picked these two programs up,
Fantastic.
hook, line, and sinker, including the greenhouses.
Wow.
And I thought he had lost it. Because again, I could not see how we could afford these unreimbursed programs.
Right, because nobody else is paying for them
Yes.
except you.
6 years later, actually even before 6 years later, within a year, I was singing the praises of these programs. And I think these are, now 6 years later, I would say I think these are transformative programs that are affecting the lives of individuals. They are programs that hit at not just dementia care, but elder care at the most innocent of its elements, at the core of music. You know, everyone likes some form of music. Likewise, the horticulture therapy program, there's something natural and enamoring about plants and working with plants, about soil, and about some of the great work they have done.
So how can you afford them?
Luckily, again, we are a nonprofit, you know, and I urge anyone to understand that there is a nonprofit difference that I say, you know, sets us apart from many other providers.
Right.
So as a nonprofit, we are able to fundraise for these programs, and really we've been very, very successful in doing so.
So philanthropy helps to support these unreimbursable programs.
Absolutely.
Because they're so interesting.
Because they're so interesting.
And help people so much.
Yeah.
That's a lesson for a lot of nursing homes and other places.
Yeah.
Why don't others do this? I mean, if these kinds of programs are so important, why doesn't everybody do it?
So I think a lot of people they don't dare to dream as big as they should. They don't dare to take the risks that sometimes should go along with business and being a good business leader. Right. Other than the philanthropic side of it, you know, these programs have helped us to reduce antipsychotic medications, which although not being good, are also a huge cost to many nursing home providers.
Yes.
They've allowed us to reduce our hospitalizations, our
hospital admissions.
Hospital admissions. They've allowed us, from a marketing standpoint, to be more attractive communities to individuals as well.
So you actually could say the philanthropy helps to support them, but also the cost savings in other areas.
Absolutely.
As long as you don't put everything in a silo.
Yes, there's a business case to be made for many of these programs, and I think a lot of providers, quite simply, are unwilling to step out there with the risk, as I was initially, of until they can be sure that business case is going to pan out.
So another, not risk, but another effort you've made to bring person-centered care, person-directed care into AG Roads is something called the Eden Alternative.
Yeah.
And this is a movement a colleague and friend of mine, Bill Thomas, started, which is to humanize nursing homes. Just tell me briefly, how does this affect the AG Road system? And
So again, we use the words person-directed care, person-centered care. We use those labels for what, again, we just see as the right way of giving care. Nursing homes generally practice or operate in what's called the medical or the biomedical model of care. And because we have such long entrenched histories of doing so, changing that model of care is very, very difficult without assistance and guidance of an organization that has done that before, has done that transformation before. So we started on a journey of researching those organizations. That's how you and I first met, because one of those that we looked closely at and are looking closely at is the I'm Still Here model. We also looked at, there's a model out of England called the Butterfly model. But the Eden Alternative really allowed us what we think is a lot of flexibility within the culture of our homes. So they didn't cookie cut for us, this is the way it has to be done. Rather, they work with us and with our individual culture. And I will say, because now I'm a lot more involved with the Eden Alternative, I serve on the international board now. And I will say that there's been a lot of, I think, miseducation with the Eden Alternative in the past. I think people associate it simply with the use of pets and animals,
Yes.
and I think there's so much more to them as a framework for organizations that really want to change, but really don't know what's the first step. It's real easy to say we want to change our nursing homes. It's very, very easy. But if you have not had any experience in doing it, it can be a very daunting challenge.
So all of this, whether it's Eden Alternative, whether it's the programs, they're part of a mission.
Absolutely.
If you had to, what's the elevator speech mission for you personally and for AG Rhodes? Why are you taking all this trouble to do such good work?
So Maya Angelou is the quote I use far too often, and that's my elevator speech. So Maya, rest in peace, said, "We did then what we knew then to be best, what we thought was best then. Now that we know better, we must do better." And I think our nation's nursing homes are in a similar dynamic. We have done or practiced care in a way that I think is less than what it should be for.
When you say we, you mean the nursing care
industry? The nursing home
industry
industry in general. I'm not,
No, I know, but
I can't cast aspersions because I'm part of that industry.
Sure.
But now we see there is a light. Now we know there is a better way to care for our elders, to care for our most vulnerable populations, and we have to start that journey. So I'll go back to Maya Angelou. Times have changed. We cannot continue to do what we did then, because now we know there's a better way to do it.
Which is really what leadership is about, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And taking a stand, and as you said, doing what's right.
Yeah.
Which is not easy.
It's not, and again, it takes leadership, not just from folks on my level. I am so fortunate to have a board of trustees and a board of advisors that very quickly grasped onto this concept. My board chair, his first reaction was, "Deke, you figure out a way to do what's right, and we will figure out a way to pay for it as a board." So I think leadership, again, not just in the C-suite level like mine, but board leaders, managers of every form, our governmental leaders need to take a similar perspective on it.
And really what we're talking about here is care, not cure.
Absolutely not.
So that's I know that's a phrase I've learned from you, actually.
Yeah.
And it's not that we don't want to cure illnesses, and we don't want to cure dementia and Alzheimer's if there is one.
Yeah.
But with the millions and millions and millions of people,
Yeah.
well, worldwide 50 million,
Yeah.
but just in this country, 5 or 6 million.
Yep.
There's something important about all that stuff you brought from Trinidad, the service and the caring and the taking care of that vulnerable population, which we have to keep in mind.
So at the risk of sounding political, I think in some ways we have not learned from the past. I think a lot of our epidemic illnesses, whether it be HIV, whether it be cancer, right now we're seeing it with dementia, we spend inordinate amounts of money searching for a cure, which is completely fine, and I think it should be a responsibility to try to cure these illnesses. But I think in that quest for the cure, we have left behind proper care for those individuals, humane care for those individuals. Again, dementia is the perfect example now that I think we need to redirect some of our approach, not just looking for the cure, but we need to balance some of our resources to caring for those individuals.
Is this a societal value change that we need? Not only the resource change, but the fact that, again, what you're doing with all these wonderful programs, and you're finding the money to do it, why doesn't every organization do it? Or do they just have a different definition of margin and mission? And
I think that's it. I think their definition of mission and margin is different. Again, I can't talk for any other organizations, but I know where my organization is coming
So
from.
when AG Rhodes and your board and you talk about the mission of the place, where does margin come in? And for those who don't know, margin is making some money off of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And mission is where you spend it on good things.
So I tell individuals, I mean, margin is high. You know, we have a saying, a credo in the nonprofit world, no margin, no mission. Because if you're not making money, you're not going to be able to pay for that, for that mission. But again, as an organization...
By the way, in the for-profit sector, it's the same.
It's the same thing.
If you want to do good, you better make enough money to do good.
You got to make some profit. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. They call it profit. You know, we call it surplus. But it's essentially it's the same thing. But I think again, we have done this for 115 years. We would not be around as an organization for 115 years if we did not find a way to etch out that margin as well. So we are a very financially successful organization, very little debt. So there is a way, you know, to do both things, to satisfy both things.
If you care enough to do it.
If you care enough to do it.
And if you've got the commitment, organizational commitment from top to bottom.
The commitment and the support from top to bottom.
Well, but that means commitment all the way down.
Absolutely.
Not only at your level, but also down with the staff and the care partners.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we have you and I met in person actually. Well, we met at a conference, but then we were part of a documentary. And it's a PBS documentary from the local Richmond
PBS affiliate.
In Virginia. And it's called Revolutionizing Dementia Care.
Yeah.
And at the end of this program, we'll have a little link to it so people can get to it. What did you find, and because I know I enjoyed being in it, but also I find it a very important document. What did you see and what do you feel is its impact?
Its impact for me was hope. So when you step into a movement like this, it sometimes feels lonely. It feels like you are attempting to do something that no one else is doing.
Sure.
And there may be a good reason that no one else is doing it. But being part of that documentary, as you were, we saw that there were other providers in the United States that were similarly, almost in a parallel fashion, working towards the same thing. You know, from that, one of my credos now has been that, you know, you cannot put a patent on good care. Us all as providers, you know, have to work together, have to share some of our lessons learned, good or bad, in really seeking to find a better way of caring for elders.
Deke, thank you so much for being here.
John, a pleasure as usual.
And to all of you who have been watching, thank you for joining us at Hopeful Aging, and hope you come back for the next session, the next interview. And also remember that no matter how old we get and how much cognitive problems we're coping with, there is hope, and it lies in knowing that we're still there and that we have something to contribute to society. So thank you for being with us, and hope to see you next time.